Hi everyone, this is JD, your gadget review friend. We're continuing to review and compare devices, and you can check these updates on our Twitter community at GadgetRevNow. Today we're going to revisit one of the few Huawei phones with Google services. It's a mixed bag for the P30 series, as some variants have Google services and some don't. So, Huawei P20 series together with the P20 Pro all have Google services, whatever your region is. Reminiscing the good old days where Huawei and Google works together, it's a great phone today, and we'll talk about the things that will make you consider Huawei P20 Pro in 2022. Still worth buying? Hey, don't forget to subscribe, my friend. Let's go! With the new Samsung S22 coming out, we're going back to a more minimalist camera module design. The shift favors the 4-year-old Huawei P20 Pro as the look somehow resembles the newer phone. Gone is that big bulky square camera module, and we're back to the simple circular camera. Huawei P20 Pro has a pill-shaped camera module with one circular camera module that is vertically situated at the back. The front doesn't look like the newer phones, as you can see rather an old design. It has a big chin with home button / fingerprint sensor and the notch, all in the small form factor of 6.1-inch screen. The shiny all-glass finish is also one great design choice that make this phone seemingly timeless. But with iPhone 13 still having a notch, actually smaller notch, similar to P20 Pro, we can still say it's in even this year. This phone packs a serious punch, and up to this day, the phone isn't slowing down. It runs on Kirin 970 at 10nm chipset with 6 to 8 gigs of RAM. Although the processor isn't battery friendly because of the bigger size, but the performance of this phone is above average. I can still play heavy games like Mobile Legends perfectly, and though not in ultra settings, gameplays are pretty good. You will feel stuttering here and there, but manageable. It also has 64 to 256 gigs of storage. It's a little challenging if you have the 64 gigs, but it's not so bad. The only thing is, it's running on the older Android 10. Again, I don't see any issues with it. It's just older, and some newer things on the newest 12 won't be found here. The battery of this phone is great. A 4000 mAh battery. You will have great battery standby time and screen on time. The screen on time I get from this phone is around 6 to 7 hours with casual to average use, social networking, content consumption, music calls, and text. Gaming is objective. I found that it may have a shorter battery life when playing games when the screen brightness is set to 50 to 70%. Thankfully, this phone has 22.5 watts fast charging, and I can reach almost 60% in 30 minutes and takes 45 minutes to get from 0 to 80%. There's one missing piece of the jigsaw though. The Huawei P20 Pro doesn't support wireless charging. The screen is a 6.1-inch OLED, and what I love about this is the 408 ppi. Imagine a smaller screen coupled with a large density OLED. It results to a sharp screen, colors are vivid and has deep blacks. I don't see any screen bleeding on the side and near the notch. The display quality is excellent, and there's a minimal blue cast when the phone is tilted, which affects some of the less advanced OLED displays. You also have a choice of color profiles. Standard color looks like a more saturated and old industry standard sRGB, which offers a fairly natural relaxed look. Vivid colors deepens the tones a little bit with a slight subtlety trade-off. It can top 600 nits in max brightness, and that is fairly enough for a sunny day. Sadly, just a regular 60Hz, it wasn't invented then when this phone was released. The fingerprint sensor is super fast and responsive, almost automatic all the time. It is a physical home button, also works as a fingerprint. It's like the pill-shaped Samsung home button before, without the two other navigation keys. Aside from being a fast fingerprint sensor, this can also act as a home button. To do this, go to Settings, System Navigation, and select the first option, Off-Screen Navigation button. You can use this as Home, Back, Recent Items, and Google Assistant. Nice! This is weird. On all of my reviews, I didn't know I would actually use Google services as my main selling point, as Android phones before automatically gets Google services. Well, not anymore. With Donald Trump banning the Chinese giant, they were left by Android skin phone without Google services. This phone still has the glory days of Huawei and Google. We have a perfectly working Google services, so if you own this, upgrading to the P50 Pro will not be an option. Also, just to mention, this phone is part of Harmony OS upgrade, so if you want to test out Harmony OS, this is a perfect cheap phone for you. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to receive more content like this. And lastly, the camera. The camera is the best feature of this phone. It has triple camera setup at the back. Our main shooter has an ultra high resolution of 40 megapixel sensor. It is backed up by a 20 megapixel black and white sensor that helps with image processing, including decreasing the image noise and improving dynamic range. The third camera is a 3x zoom, and it also has an 8 megapixel sensor, letting you zoom into the scene without using a digital zoom. Hey, just a side note, the main sensor only outputs 10 megapixel photo and not 40 megapixel. Huawei's JPEG handling is so good that when you zoom in 100% to a 10 megapixel photo, it actually appears far sharper than a 40 megapixel native one. It handles exposure and dynamic range very well, although at times it can be a little too obsessed with retaining every square inch of the highlights, making some parts of the photo look a little dull. Thanks to the large main sensor and relatively wide f1.8 Leica lens, natural bokeh or bokeh is lovely and very pronounced. The Huawei P20 Pro can also shoot videos up to 4K resolution, but for handheld footage, you might want to stick to 1080p. At 4K resolution, there's no image stabilization. So what is Gadget Rev Now's verdict? Huawei P20 Pro in 2022. I did not include a cheap price because I know it's given. This will be cheap. It's a 4-year-old phone and no one should be selling this like a new device. Like the older phone of the same year, the iPhone XS, the Samsung S9 and Oneplus 6, this phone will give you bang for your buck. With all these 4 phones available, I would probably go with the P20 Pro, then iPhone XS second. I will not recommend this to people who still uses the headphone jack. Huawei killed the headphone jack starting with this series, and if you have a wireless charging, this doesn't support wireless charging, though the wired charger is fast enough. And I'll recommend this to people who loves a great camera phone, who uses Google apps and services, and like smaller phones. This is one of the best used phones out there. You will be surprised how good the build quality is. It will put the newer phones to shame. Huawei P20 Pro is a great phone, very reliable and complete. It has everything you need from the hardware to the software, the good old Google days. I'd say this phone is still worth it. New phones are great if you can afford it, but for someone with a limited budget and contemplating buying a budget phone or used, this phone is 3 times better than a budget phone. Huawei P20 Pro might not be the coolest looking phone, but will work better than those budget ones. It might be old, but works like a regular Android phone with great set of flexible cameras. You'll love it. And hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.